All right, parents, when it comes to developmental delays and missed milestones in kids, speech delays are perhaps the most concerning, the most frustrating, and the most disheartening. And there's a lot of good reason why they would be that way. Speech delays in and of themselves are a sign of neurological dysfunction, or as we'll teach you here on this video, really physical obstruction to the process and the formation of speech. We'll break it all the way down and keep it so simple for you to really understand the root cause of speech delays with this videos in a way that no other doctor, no other professional has. But first off, really looking at the perfect storm of speech delays, if you will. We can look backwards to what's causing them, but we also got to look ahead and say, man, if we don't get that speech back online, we could be running into increased challenges with emotional and social regulation because communication is so much of that. We could run into academic cognition components with school later on because without communication, if it's not happening at all, well, that would be what's called apraxia of speech, full nonverbal, very common in more severe cases of autism. But also if it's just not smooth, if it's not going real well, can it lead to challenges at school, making friends, in communication and social emotional regulation that could then lead the child to be frustrated, lead to behavior challenges, lead to emotional challenges? The answer is yes. This one thing is caused by a multiple of things, and then it leads to a multiple of things as well. And I promise, watch this educational video all the way through, and you'll not only better understand, hey, is my child going through a speech delay, but most importantly, you'll understand what's causing it and all the mechanics to it so that you can address those root causes head on and get the most optimal results and the fullest potential for your child, their speech, their emotions, their development, all of it. That's also who this video is for. If you already know your child is struggling with speech delays and you're already doing the right things with speech therapy and other form of therapies perhaps, but you're at a stuck point, you're at a plateau, or your child is regressing or just not making progress as fast as you would like, this video is for you. See, that's the story with Lane, a little dude who we are so blessed to take care of. In fact, I just recorded a podcast episode with his mom sharing his story and her story. If you don't follow, listen to our podcast. It's called the Experience Miracles Podcast. And by the time this video comes out, I think you'll be able to find it on Spotify, Apple, and all the different podcast platforms. But with Lane's story is a very common story of speech delays. Lane had a very rough, traumatic birth. In fact, that's the one thing we're going to break down as the root trigger and correlation and cause that just no one else is really talking to parents and other professionals about. We're going to literally, visually, in just a second, get into the mechanics. That was Lane's story. That was his connection to first gross motor challenges. And so through Lane's story, we're already in teaching mode with this video because the way neurodevelopment, brain development works for kiddos over these first 3, 5, 7 years of life is gross motor. So the big muscles, head, neck, tummy time, torso, roll over, sit up, army crawl, furniture cruise, and then walk. Gross motor function must get online all the way and very organized, very efficiently, if you will, first before fine motor and advanced neurological function. Speech is fine motor. Speech comes after gross motor. So anybody who really understands neurodevelopment and motor milestones, which sadly is not always the conventional pediatrician, the amount of these early signs, these early warning signs of autism, speech delays, and so forth that is missed in a conventional pediatrician's office it's disheartening. It's frustrating. I don't know how else to say it in this video other than so many of these to a pediatric chiropractor, neurodevelopmental specialists like I am, to pediatric PTs, OTs, and speech therapists, and people working in the early intervention program. It's a regular day-to-day frustration. How did this get missed for so long? Because when we see the connections to breech position, stressful pregnancy, labor, forceps, C-section, vacuum extraction deliveries, these things that like Lane went through, rough birth, and then all the signs lead to gross motor delays and speech delays. But that was Lane. So his speech, though, had started to come on and then regressed significantly at 18 months. And so they tried everything for Lane. They were already in physical therapy for the gross motor. They tried to get him scheduled with speech therapy. These were during the crazy COVID times, so no one was seeing people in person, and they were going to try and do speech therapy for a kiddo with significant sensory challenges. And even if he didn't, he wasn't even 2 years old yet or just turned 2 years old, and they were going to try and do speech therapy on Zoom. Now, none of that makes sense. And for you as a parent, it just may not make sense. Why is my child struggling with speech? Why is it not coming online? Why is it not smooth? Why is it not functioning the way we want? Why are they plateaued or stuck? If that's you, give me a few more minutes on this video because I'm going to get you the answers, the explanations, and the action steps you so need to get the results your child deserves with their speech. So here's the deal. Real quick, breaking down speech into its simplest form, there's 3 steps to it. Number 1 with speech is perception or reception. That's why we got to have hearing and that part of the nervous system functioning. So if your child has speech delays, often the traditional conventional pathway will rule those out first. Most kids, that's not the problem. They can get that auditory communication words into their brain and nervous system. That's step 1. Step 2 is inside what's called the central or autonomic nervous system. Now that sensory input, that auditory input needs to be interpreted. It needs to be coordinated and organized. So the inside of the nervous system, job number 2, is to do exactly that. Make sense of that input. And then job number 3 is once that interpretation and coordination is created inside the brain and the nervous system, then that information, that execution, that speech formation and response can come from the child. Most kiddos with speech delay have a physical, what we're going to show and call neuromuscular dysfunction. There's a catch-all word for that called subluxation. So those are some nerd terms. I'm going to say them real quick one more time just to make sure you got them. There's a physical obstruction causing speech delays the vast majority of the time. That's a little bit simplifying it. So breaking it down just a bit more, it's specific dysfunction within the neuromuscular tone and coordination. So the nerves that communicate these signals and the nerves that control the muscles that create speech and form speech, that's a very delicate, intricate, even though we broke it down into those 3 stages, that's really simplifying it. The nervous system, this is a very advanced protocol, if you will, for the brain, the nerves, and the muscles to create. And so that neuromuscular dysfunction has a catch-all term called subluxation. Now, final, most important part for parents and providers alike to know is, okay, there's a physical subluxation, there's a neuromuscular interference or dysfunction in this speech reception, just executive functioning, and then formation. Well, the question then begs, what caused or what triggered that physical obstruction? And what we see time and time again in our case histories of our patients with speech delays, upon our examination and thorough analysis of the root cause, and then what is starting to really show up again and again in the research and the data as well, is a strong correlation between birth intervention like C-section, forceps, vacuum induction, manual assistance, and if we go back a little bit on the chronological clock, just breech positioning or in utero constraint. The reason for that, and the reason I want to show you this image, is to make it obvious. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, well, I could say vagal nerve dysfunction, subluxation, all these cranial nerves. I can give you all the science and teach it to you step by nerd step. But I just wanted to show you as parents that when a C-section or a vacuum would be the stress up here, a forceps would be doing exactly what they're doing in this birth, but using a big old pliers essentially. Whenever there is physical compression, so this thumb, this finger right here are literally compressing upon the brainstem and what's called the occiput, atlas, so that's the C1 vertebrae and neurospinal cord area. The axis, which is C2, which is really in charge of neuromuscular coordination, including the muscles that are in charge of formation of speech, and really the whole cervical and cranial system. There is physical compression, attention that's going on in a birth like this. And then what they're going to need to do is yank upward. That's called axial traction, and then twist as well to get the torso out. Now that is the physical neuromuscular structural mechanics of birth intervention. And it has been so normalized, and it is so a big deal when it comes to speech delays, sensory processing, spectrum, seizures, you name it. Birth intervention and birth trauma, or brainstem, vagus nerve, spinal cord sort of injuries, are connected to this conversation in a major way. We can see it through what's called meta-analysis and statistical observational studies, but I don't even want to talk to you about those. I want to show you the mechanics. We know the science. As neurologically focused pediatric chiropractors whose specialty is neurodevelopment, we know this. We see it in case history and we see it in an examination. Once that subluxation is there in that child's brainstem and upper neck, and maybe that birth intervention awesomely saved their life or mom's life, but what if it has downstream consequences for their life? What if they then had difficulty latching and nursing and swallowing? What if they then had chronic ear infections? Because the same nerves and the same muscles control swallowing and eating. The same nerves and the same muscles control drainage of the ears and sinuses. So maybe they got chronic ear infections and sinus infections and antibiotics, which destroyed the gut further, which messed with the gut-brain connection and the vagus nerve there. The vagus nerve is the number one nerve that comes down through this brainstem C1, C2 area and goes and controls both the sensory reception of speech and the formation of it. It would take me a 20-hour video to actually teach you all of the neuroscience and the neuromuscular mechanics that cause speech delay and also come from birth interventions, birth trauma, and subluxation, and these neurophysical obstructions like we're talking about, which is why really I hope you see what the conclusion of this video is. It's the same conversation. We know what triggers subluxation and neuromuscular dysfunction, and we now know that those things, including dysautonomia, where the vagus nerve is offline and the sympathetic fight or flight nervous system is stuck on, which is maybe also why your child with speech delays doesn't sleep well, doesn't regulate their mood, struggles with sensory processing disorder, sinus congestion, constipation, sensory spectrum challenges. Generally, a child with a speech delay has many other neurodevelopmental or neurosensory challenges as well. And the coolest, most exciting thing for parents is so often it's all correlated to this perfect storm sequence. Stressful pregnancy, breech position, stuck in the birth canal, birth intervention, yanking, twisting, pulling on the neck and the cranial system, messing with those nerves, messing with those muscles, messing with the vagus nerve, messing with the brainstem, and leading to all these challenges later on. So why go to this degree? Why go 15 minutes into this detailed conversation? Why write the whole article? Which, by the way, if you want to learn more, you want to see the research, you want to learn more about the mechanics and the neuromuscular dysfunctions of speech delay and the natural drug-free solutions that can help your child get their optimal quality of life back, and go to the website, hit the link in our bio or with this video. Tons of articles on our website about speech delays, including Apraxia, tons of articles about birth trauma, birth intervention, subluxation, the technology and examination we use to find this stuff. But why bring you to this point? So you can get moving forward and get these physical challenges, these subluxations taken care of for your child. The whole goal is to get you connected to a neurologically focused PX doctor, because we're the only ones that really know this. And even those that know this, we're the only ones who can do anything about this. Getting these subluxations adjusted and addressed is so effective for your child's quality of life, but it's not your regular average Joe chiropractor. You need a nervous system focused, pediatric trained chiropractor like we've got in the PX Docs network, because it's a very specific case history analysis. It's a very specific examination and use of technology to find those subluxations, quantify them, locate them. It's a very specific clinical protocols and adjusting style, which is very gentle and very easygoing and so relaxing for the child to go through. And so I want you to get connected to not just more information if you need it, but to the PX Docs network as well. Because like Lane, whose speech is no longer delayed, That's exactly what your child deserves. Lane's whole nervous system is now out of that stuck, subluxated, dysfunctional storm. Lane has responded to his neurotonal chiropractic adjustments and care plan wonderfully. His gross motor system vastly improved. His speech on fire, saying I love you to mom and dad, talking to siblings, talking to everyone else. And instead of being stuck and plateaued and actually regressing in therapy, he's making more gains and achieving more milestones and getting back on track faster than anyone could ever imagine. So much so that his physical therapist and his speech therapist are now sending patients in for neurologically focused chiropractic care because they know that when kids get adjusted as well, they get so much more out of therapy. So I'd love if you shared this video. I know it was in depth and I know it was long and I know we got nerdy, but kept it simple at the same time. And that's why I would love for you to share this video with other parents, other Facebook groups of kids you know going through these challenges. In the autism world, this is a significant issue that must be addressed in this way as well. And I'd love for you also to even tag your professionals. If you've got a rock star speech therapist, PT, OT, developmental therapist, and early intervention team, well, that's where our professions need to collaborate, because the way this works, once that subluxation and neurological dysfunction is out of their way, they can take off and get so much more out of therapy. And we need that incredible form of care to help close the gap and get kids caught up if they did have speech delays, developmental delays, and missed milestones. Thank you so much for digging in on this video with us. If you're on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to this. If you do love this sort of information and you want to get it in podcast form as well, again, the Experience Miracles podcast, we literally interviewed Lane's mom here recently on an episode, and you can find that there as well. Comment, DM, whatever the heck we can do to help your child with speech delays, whatever we can do to help your family, drug-free, natural options for the highest quality of life. Chiropractic is not a treatment for speech delay. Chiropractic is not a cure for speech delay. We don't cure an ear infection. We don't treat an ear infection or any other list of anything. We take care of the nervous system. We address the subluxation and the neurological dysfunction, and we get the body working better on its own, just as God intended it to do. So we don't treat our patients. We don't chase symptoms. We address root cause, and we take care of them in an individual, personalized way every single time. If that's what you need for your child, if that's what you need for your family, either get to the website and book your appointment right through the directory or right through our practice, or just send us a DM and we'll send you in the right direction from there. God bless, be well, please share. We'll see you on the next one.